Hey everyone, I am here to talk to you a little bit about the assignment that you have to do. It's your model of your comprehensive school counseling program. I thought that I would be able to, like I have with the other assignments, to explain a little bit more to you about what's expected, that really can't be explained as well just by reading the syllabus. So what I'd like for you to make sure and do is to go online into Canvas. I have reformatted the instructions regarding the assignment. It's still the exact same assignment, but I want you to make sure that you go back because I've tried to list what's expected in the requirements a little bit more to where you can find the information you need actually in the Texas model. So one of the things I think is super, super important for you to go back to do, just like I talked about before, is to see the Texas model that is put together by the state for counselors to use to build a comprehensive school counseling program. There's research cited that suggests the students' overall academic achievement and well-being is much more easy to evaluate and to have a positive impact when you use this model. So one of the main competencies that are required at the national and state level, I'm going to show you because I wrote it down real here, is all the other competencies fall down beneath it, but the overriding one is that school counselors can demonstrate the standards necessary to design, implement, and evaluate the comprehensive school counseling plan. As y'all know, or may not know, if you've read in the text, the very first comprehensive plan put together for school counselors was actually developed in 1989-90, which I'm not going to tell you where I was in school at that time because y'all already know I'm older. But this plan wasn't something that was just recently developed. It began back then and was continually changed just the way everything else was. One of the recent ones that was being used is this model here, which is revised in 2004, but listen to the title. This is a model for a comprehensive developmental guidance and counseling program. There was still a lot of the guidance language as ASCA, our national body, changed their model. Then Texas, along with our requirements that the state expects of students to be able to have, for teachers to be able to teach, as well as using those national standards, they just recently in 2018 updated the model. Listen to the difference in the title. The Texas model for comprehensive school counseling programs. If you didn't get the difference, there's no more guidance. It is school counseling. If you remember, nationally, as well as in our program puts out mental health professionals who can work in a variety of contexts. For those of y'all who've taught in Texas, for those of y'all who are getting the school counseling master's degree, your context will literally be in a school setting. So it's important to know some of the literature that you're reading, as well as extremely, extremely important that when you leave, that you know what the content is in this model. So in order to be able to measure this for you, as well as to know that you as an individual know what is expected in your program, because for some of y'all, you will be the only one on your campus, in order to be able to give you the skills and the knowledge, that's what this assignment is. I put it in presentation form so that you will be forced to, on the slides, not copy and paste the content, but put it in your own words. What is going to be expected? And to present it as if you were going for a job interview or going to visit with your principal for the first time, any stakeholders, to tell them, this is what school counselors do. This is what is expected out of the state of Texas in all of these different areas, so that then they know. I promise you, if you can talk about this model and the expectations that are required of you, you will be able to get this stuff done. If you're going to go to a campus and just wait for someone to tell you what to do, you're going to be doing duty in the morning and afternoons, or seeking referrals for kids who won't behave, etc. I have not had as many, I've told many of y'all before, ever been able to go in and show my principals, this is what I want to do for students, and for them to say no. But you have to be able to articulate the expectations. And a lot of that has to do with what you know. And it not only becomes an advocacy piece for your students to get the services that they deserve, but also for you to be able to do the job that you've always wanted to do, right? So let me go back again just a second. Our first model that was developed, it was very short, was 1988, 89, 90, that school year. As I said, it's changed over time. What I want you to know, though, is that a lot of the requirements that are in here have been similar over time. So what I think is super important for you to recognize, that I know that I hear from a lot of counselors, is that I didn't know I was supposed to do that. I'd like for you to take it a step further, okay? And that is, as a teacher, you're not always going to be able to see what people are doing with the model, okay? Because it's not stuff that necessarily you can talk to teachers about. They do have an important piece in it, but the rest of it is about you and your work. So I want you to be aware of that, so that it's super important for you to be able to go and advocate, to talk to the people in your constituencies, not only the principal, but the parents, the teachers, etc., to kind of say, this is what the plan is. This is my role in it. When I'm doing this, this is sort of what's happening. But you also have to realize, too, that there are a number of people who are not very much older than me who graduated from a school counseling program that worked with that 89, 90 model. And a little bit later, I would have been 98. So we'd had our second version, but it was not this big at all. So try super, super hard. I know that at the school district surrounding here and in my hometown, that there are workshops that counselors go to once a month, or in the springtime when teachers do those things, where they are going over this model and trying to make sure that they're able to provide what it is that they can. But we'll all be responsible for that piece, okay? So I kind of wanted to throw that in a little bit just to know, but your biggest tool that's going to be, that is going to give you what you need to advocate, not only for you, but your profession, as well as your students, to give them what they need, will be this model. And the only way for me to make sure that you know what's in it is for me to make you go through it, all right? So what you're going to have to do is, let me come back to the instructions so I can make sure that we're covered. Be sure to look at the ones that are online. So there's compelling empirical evidence that demonstrates the positive impact of a comprehensive school counseling program that it has over the overall academic achievement of students, their attendance and behavior, as well as the overall school climate. So when you were reading and other assignments where it was saying, so what is the role? What is the philosophy of your professional school philosophy of what it means to be a counselor on a school campus? You're going to find it here. The assignments that you did where you looked at, okay, so how can I use data to inform decisions? You're going to find it here. When you're asking, so what is it in regards to services? What is it that I teach my students in regards to the curriculum that as a school counselor I need to deliver? It's in here. So throughout the class, I've given you these assignments that were a little bit more dense, but that you'll need to be able to provide as evidence from what's in here. So going back to the instructions, you'll see that I've asked you're going to do this in a PowerPoint. Pretend that you're doing a presentation for a job or for your principal. Say, look, the school year hasn't started. I kind of want to tell you who I am, what this is. What would you want them to know? How do you advocate for your students, yourself, and our profession? You show them this, and they're going to go like, oh my God, I had no idea, right? Because I've told you there's not very many principal programs that require people to take a counseling course to know what's going on. So basically, They think counselors are doing what they see as when they were teachers, what counselors were doing. And you're learning as you go through that there's a lot of stuff in the background happening that none of us really get to see on a daily. So continuing to go through this, there are 5 sections in this model, okay? And so basically what I want you to do is to pull out the key information and place them in a PowerPoint. Does this mean copy and paste? No, okay? If you can imagine going to a workshop yourself, I'm sure one of y'all have been to a conference or to a workshop before where the whole slide is text. So do you want me to read the text or do you want me to listen to you, right? You need to use your brain to put the information, the content, to compress it into smaller sentences. Bullets are bullets, they're not sentences or paragraphs, just so you know, in order for you to be able to relay the information that you need. Now remember, this can't be like a 45-page or presentation. I want to be able to tell that you've engaged with the content and that you're not just listing. This thing is 192, I believe, pages. I believe that it is. You can't put everything that's in there. So what do you have to do? You have to read it and put some points together to kind of give them an overview of what's expected. So let's look. I've provided below, there's the different sections, the page numbers, the actual, if you look in the table of contents, you'll be able to specifically see section 1 here that's about responsibilities of school counselors. It begins on page 19. So if you look at the table of contents, you'll see where each section starts, and you'll actually see what is actually in the content of that section. Okay, this tells you everything. Okay, so it's why I gave it to y'all at the very, very beginning on the welcome page. And it's why I think some of y'all, if you've done assignments where it's like, what? Because you hadn't read this yet or the summary of it yet. So, but you're getting better. This is what this is for. So you will have what you need when you finish, okay? So if you take a look at section 1, which is on page 19 of the study, or the model, you're going to see that it is about the responsibilities of the school counselors. The basic description that you can put at the beginning on a PowerPoint slide where you look at the section, you can say it addresses the 10 professional competencies school counselors use in delivering services to students and others through an organized and intentional comprehensive school counseling program. So when you're able to tell people what it is that you do as a school counselor, what your responsibilities are, you should be able to articulate this, not only to administration, but your teachers, to families, and to students, right? Shouldn't be like a real guess if we're telling people what we do adequately, if that makes sense. So the second section is the program implementation cycle. So this one here is going to have everything that you need to know about organizing the comprehensive plan, what should be in it, how do you design it, how do you actually begin implementing the plan as you go along, right? So it's not something that has to be completely done from the beginning. Everything begins on day 1 of school. No, there's actually a plan of how this worked out, and the model is developed so that you don't have to guess. So what is the assessment cycle, right? What is the review period? How are services going to be delivered? All of those pieces are there. So it's extremely important section that will lay the foundation for everything else. So the third piece of it is the foundational components. And this particular section speaks about how do you communicate your program's purpose and philosophy through a mission statement and definition, a rationale for your program, as well as the assumptions that are conditions that are going to be required. And you're going to be able to see in here specifically what it says as far as assumptions. Like, you're going to be able to tell your principal, like, I have to have these basic things in place for this program to be implemented and carried through, okay? And some of it you may go like, whatever, but it's happening, it's real. The data comes from schools around Texas who are doing this. And so the idea here is for you to be able to see what it is that you need. For a lot of school counselors I speak to and the research that I look at, a lot of it's about time. I want to ask my principals for time to be able to do this. And I think to myself, like, well, who doesn't need more time? Like, if I could have like 3 more hours a day, that would be fantastic. Just like, give me 27-hour days and I might be able to get everything done. But when you're asking for something specific, I need time because I have to do A, B, C, and D. The cycle requires that I do 1, 2, 3, and 4. And if I need support, if I need the time, if I need resources, it's not because I just need money to get stuff. It's because I need money for stuff that's like section A, B, C, D, and F. It's all there. So you really don't even have to make this up. Okay, so we're going to continue going on. So that's 3. 4 is the delivery of services. So you'll have to, this section will tell you a bit about how you will deliver services. For example, how will you deliver the curriculum? Well, you already know how to find the information that you need, not only you remember you did your lesson and now you did your group or your workshop for career. That is where you looked to find the information you needed for the curriculum that you have to deliver, okay? So take a look at that. What's your curriculum? What about the responsive services? What does responsive services mean? How are you pulling in kids who are not doing really well? At the high school, I would have had to pull data to see who needed some support to get into content recovery, making up hours because they've been absent too long. How do I make sure that the kid who failed English 1 their freshman year isn't in English 2? Because they didn't pass English 1. So there are those kind of responsive services that are the academic piece, but also remember there's the career piece for the workshop that you've developed or the group you've developed, as well as the personal social piece where we're talking about where you went and did your lesson from, where you were talking about goal setting, where you're talking about like, how do I get my interpersonal relationships with other people? How do I communicate and get what I need from others? What do I do when I'm anxious? Right? What about our kids who are brilliant and do well, but don't do well on tests because of real test anxiety? How do we assess that? And then what are we going to do to be responsive? What about the kids who, the police call, and you have to be the one to tell a child that a family member has passed away in a car accident? Those are all responsive services. How do you make sure that your kids feel safe? How do you make sure that your teachers feel supported? In what ways will you be able to support teachers when they come to you saying, this kid is in my class, he has some emotional issues, I don't even know what to do? How as a school counselor, and how would you support that faculty member, and then what kind of support, information, training, etc., workshops would you be able to provide the teachers so that they can better support the students, right? So it's extending your reach outside of just your office and across campus. That's where you can have a real role. I know that when teachers are stressed out with test scores, they need support as well. So what is our responsibility to them? Because when teachers are stressed, when I'm stressed, how does that affect the students in my class, right? It's a real thing. So what do we do in a bigger piece to take care of our students that we're responsible for as well by helping our teachers? So that is all the different ways. So you'll have individual student planning. How do you start to get them to think a little bit more about the career, the transition from high school to college, right? The transition from middle school to high school, and all the rules that they're supposed to know, but they don't because they've never been there before, right? And then, of course, the counseling services that I explained for parents, school personnel, invested stakeholders. And then be sure to include information on the use of data in your planning. Now, remember, people cannot find the numbers. For those of y'all who hate research, this is a way that you will people can't fight the numbers, all right? So for the school counselors, I've gone to some of the campuses here in Ector. I want to say, I talked with a group of like 12 in Midland because they're sort of like, you keep talking about the data. How do we get more counselors? How do we get support? So I'll say things like, okay, so the first thing is going to take you a couple more minutes, but I promise in the long run, you'll be able to see, not only be able to see what you're doing, but then be able to have data to request another counselor or more support or more time rather than doing some of the other things, right? So it's something as easy as sort of like track who's coming in. Why are they coming in? What was their experience after leaving your office? Doing a little index card where they said, I came in for this. How do I feel? 1 through 5 or whatever, depending on your age group. And then at particular points in time, once a month, be able to gather that data and put it in a spreadsheet. Month after month, you'll be by the end of the semester and then at the end of the year, you'll be able to actually show these are the number of students that we've seen. These are the reasons that they're coming in. This is how they're leaving. We also have this many students that aren't receiving services. How many kids signed up to see you that you didn't get to see? The numbers can't be argued with, especially when you have the proper assessments. Is it an additional piece? Yes, but I have yet to find out where that has not been helpful because it gives you a case to ask for extra support, to take you off of duties that maybe you weren't, that you could be doing something else with, etc. So I think it's really, really important for us, even though we're all about people and less about numbers, to recognize how numbers can help us in providing services to people, to give us more time, right? So that is the whole delivery of services. And to be able, y'all, to assess and determine whether what you're doing is working or not. I've told some of y'all before, but it's the same kind of model that we have in our program. We keep all of your grades for all of your assignments, for every single assignment per class, etc. And we can go back and change if there are a certain percentage of students who aren't being successful on an exam, on an assignment, etc., kind of like I did with the case conceptualization, then we have to change it. What we're doing is not working. And so we use those numbers to determine what it is that was our goal. Did we get there? Did the majority? Did 80% of them? Did it more, et cetera, and then use all of that data at the end of the year to decide how we're going to provide services. You won't be in the classroom, but you still will be delivering services. One of them is, so how do the students feel when they leave? That little card that I mentioned to you. Some of it will be about your groups that you might have about career. Is there assessment that the students can do to say about what they knew or didn't know pre and post the experience? When you go to a lesson, how will you assess if the students are actually getting the information? But remembering that we don't necessarily assess the same way we would as in the classroom. For example, we do some of the ethical pieces, the case conceptualizations. They are difficult for y'all, or they can be difficult because you have to really try and think about what belongs here, what doesn't, am I putting the right information, how do I conceptualize this? But that's how we know what it is that you're thinking. It's not right, wrong, but the process that you're using to come to a particular end or a goal that you want to get to. So the program curriculum, section 5, that's where you found a lot of the information that we talked about. Remember the sections that were in there. Some of y'all, the curriculum in the 4 content areas are interpersonal effectiveness. How are people relating with each other? So there's interpersonal, intrapersonal. What is the self-evaluation looking like? So this is that human piece for individual students, as well as how are they communicating to get what they need individually as well as between. So take a look at those. You'll be able to see the personal health and safety, and then the post-secondary education career readiness piece, which you probably looked at when you were doing your career or group career workshop. And then the last thing you'll need way at the end is to make sure and cite. So a really good thing for you'll be able to do in each of these components is be able to talk about what's in the model, but then to give an example. When they're asking in the foundations component about the mission, for example, What would be your mission? Give it to them. The delivery of services, you have some examples, right? You did your lesson, that could be a curriculum example, as well as your workshop where you can show about group services. You might want to throw in something of like, what would individual services like? How would you find? How would you assess? So a bunch of those things are already in the assignments that I've given you that you can use as particular examples, right? So you're the same thing with the curriculum. Be able to show examples. This has to be more, y'all, than just taking everything out of this giant book and putting it in a PowerPoint, okay? I need to be able to understand that you get it, that you know what your responsibilities are, that you understand the various sections of the components of the Texas model, as well as to be able, and the ways for me to know that, y'all, is for you to be able to make sure that what is there, what is in there, what needs to be in there is presented, that you can find those particular things, not repeat yourself a million times over, and be able to describe it in your own words. Another thing is then to be able to provide examples about what that actually might look like, okay? Those will cover all those pieces of being able to develop, not only that you can find the information, but that you comprehend, you understand it, and then can apply it by giving an example, thinking critically of what it might look like. So something super, super, super that's going to be helpful for you is to go to the internet. I swear to you, if you put elementary school comprehensive school counseling program in Texas, you're going to get examples, because a lot of schools are now posting them on their websites. They're sharing them with, they're requiring that they post it so that constituencies, community members, parents, the board, etc., that they can have access to see what it is that's going on, okay? Do not copy and paste it. Don't. If you see something that makes more sense to you, okay, make sure you cite the information that you're using. All right, because I'll use the VeriCite to make sure that it's original, and that if it's not original, that it's cited appropriately. Do not go into a long dissertation, okay? Tell me what it says concisely, okay? It's not a paper. I already know what it says, so you don't have to explain things so thoroughly. Remember that PowerPoints are meant to provide a structure to your conversation, provide components, but then you'll also be able to fill in with examples, kind of like the way we do in class, okay? So I would try not to make your PowerPoint over maybe 40 slides. It can be helpful sometimes when you're presenting to people who don't know what we do if you make it aesthetically appealing. Do you have a picture of a little kid on there somewhere on the side? You know, something that would draw in your audience to pay attention to what it is that you're talking about, because this is important and you want them to listen. Okay? I'm dig deep, y'all. You can so do this. I feel like if you get an opportunity to do this, you'll at least know what's there, know where you need to look, right? And that you'll have some guidance as to when you get out there, what it is that you really want to do. Where does it fit? Okay, so nobody else has to make it up for you, because you already know. All right. As always, don't hesitate to email me if you have any questions. I'm happy to visit with anyone who might need that as well. So give me a holler. If not, I will keep a lookout for your assignments, and I'm so looking forward to seeing them. Okay. All right. So take care.